Hello, JW Strugglers. We are back again with yet another interview. Now, this is a unique interview in that it is an update. We are going to update you on the progress of our friend Trevor. We interviewed him in January by himself, and today we're going to interview him and have him on JWStruggle with his lovely wife, Sarah. And it's exciting to get her point of view, and it's exciting to talk to the both of them about how they got out of the Watchtower movement together. First of all, Trevor and Sarah, thank you for being on the channel and talking with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Really glad that we can do this because, you know, I've done a number of interviews now, and at the end of most of my interviews, I'll say, oh, well, you know, please keep in touch and let me know how you're doing and et cetera. And so far, you know, that's pretty much been it. But Trevor, I'm really glad that you contacted me and said, hey, I've got some good update stuff to share. And then we talked, of course, and I was really amazed at more of the backstory, especially with your wife's side of the family as well. And I was thinking, if it's okay with you, Sarah, maybe we could start with that. I guess your family members, was it your brother that kind of helped to wake you up to the truth about the truth? Is that so? And how did that come about?
Well, kind of. He was the first one that started to break out of the organization, and at the time he was living in China. He and his wife were serving as missionaries. He was an elder, obviously. They were pioneering, and they started just talking a lot about Jesus in their emails, and initially, you know, for a witness, that's a weird thing. So you know, just from them talking about Jesus too much, it made me kind of leery, like, what's going on? And he grew a beard, which they were allowed to do over there in China, but there were just things here and there that made me feel uncomfortable, like he was starting to break away. He had written a couple emails and just a couple questions about, what's our personal relationship with Jesus. And at the time, I was just afraid that I wasn't going to be able to talk to him, that something was going on with him. I didn't know what. So I kind of pulled away from him and wasn't talking to him a whole lot at the time. And during that time, my parents started breaking away a little bit, and from just my brother saying, guys, just read the Bible by itself. And so they started doing that, and I could see that they were starting to break away, and it made me even more uncomfortable, actually. Like, I'm going to lose my whole family here. I really don't know what's going on. But at the same time, it got me to start thinking about, you know, the different things over the years that had bothered me, and what was my relationship with Jesus Christ. Did I really have one at all, really? And I didn't. That's the simple answer was, I didn't really even know who Jesus was. So I started reading the Bible on my own, and just that, along with all the other things that I was seeing, I knew in my heart that I didn't want to do this anymore, that it wasn't the truth. You know, once you start, I mean, you can just learn it just from reading the Bible and see clearly that this is the lies that you're being fed all these years. So I just started breaking away in my heart to begin with. And then Trevor was gone on a trip for a few months for work, and I just kind of stopped going to the meetings during that time. And the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, was the convention 2 years ago? 2 years ago or 3 years? 3 years ago. Anyways, there was a talk about how the organization was our mother, and it's totally not scripturally based. And at that point, I knew that I was done, that I was fed up with all of it, and that was it for me. So that was the last convention I attended, and pretty much maybe 1 or 2 meetings after that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that background. So let me get this straight then, Sarah. So you're a brother and his wife, and then your parents, and then they shared this with you, and then I'm assuming you turned around and you tried to talk to your husband, and then what was his reaction at first?
Well, actually, I didn't entertain it. I didn't really talk about it with anyone. I just knew the things that I knew were wrong about the organization, and then starting to read the Bible. But at the time, at the very beginning of my breaking away, I was very uncomfortable, and I didn't talk about it with my brother or my parents. I could just see the things that were happening, and so I started my own thought processes, and that was basically it. Like, I started reading the Bible, and I made my own conclusions. Everyone kind of did it based on their own, time frame, because like Trevor and I like to say, it really is a journey, a very personal journey. So we didn't really share. I didn't want to read anything. I didn't go to any websites. I didn't read any books or anything like that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that helped us is even before we thought about leaving, even before it crept in our mind, we as a married couple had talked about things that we saw that we didn't like. I think in my original interview, the September 2007 Kingdom Ministry, about not reading the Bible in small groups or by yourself, and if you did, you had to we used the Watchtower publications only. That was something that just I didn't like for years. And then just some of the overall attitude when we would go to the conventions, and I think I touched a little bit about that on the previous interview about just the way the bureaucracy, or that's not the word, just I don't know what the word is, just the red tape you had to get through. Yeah, and volunteering for when I volunteered for the first aid department,
Right.
there's just a lot of red tape and all that type of stuff, and just the overall general attitude of the brothers and sisters had changed over the years, I think, and we're like, man, this is just, how is this different than any other religion, was in the back of our mind. So we had already kind of questioned that, and during that time, Sarah was working night shift. And I got to a point to where I was like, you know what, Sarah, it's okay to skip the meeting. And I was encouraging her more and more to skip the meeting because we just saw things that weren't right, I guess. And so I wasn't as strict, or I wasn't as before as, we got to get to every meeting. I think the average witness, my goal is to let them know that they can get out with their entire family intact. That it doesn't, have to be, like my brother-in-law just told me that, they've been inactive for a year, but they still feel a little funny about talking to us, but they'd rather talk to a disfellowship sister. But he would tell me he doesn't know what's going to end up between him and his wife.
Right.
So even though she's not, hasn't been to a meeting for a year now, she's still feeling guilty, doesn't want to talk to me, but willing to talk to a disfellowship sister who was disfellowship for fornication. And it's just it's rare that you see, everybody that I've talked to, married couples haven't really had the opportunity to get out together. And one of my biggest things was, it was everybody's personal journey, and I was ready to come out, but I was more scared about what was going to happen to my family. And, luckily Sarah was one of those people that just was kind.
Luckily Sarah's awesome. And
so she was, she supported me, and we supported each other in just so many different ways.
Okay.
That made it for us to really, we knew what we saw was wrong, but getting to the point to where we were both comfortable at leaving was a journey in itself.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest things Sarah had told me is that she realized that my family was going to be left behind, but one of the biggest things that helped me out was that she says, if you want me to continue to go to the meetings, that's fine, but just know that I'm not going to comment and I'm not going to go out in service. And I think that in itself helped me just know that that was an option, even though I didn't want to do that. It helped me, and it helped me deepen my respect for her to do that for me.
Right, because you were seeing that something was wrong, and you were trying to support your wife and just give yourselves time, is what it sounds like.
Right, and how it happened between us is right before he left on that trip, the 3 months that he was gone, and I quit going to meetings and things like that. I said to him, I think I asked him how he felt about Jesus and how he felt about the organization taking the place of Jesus and even the headship arrangement. Where does the organization fit into that? You know, God, Christ, man, woman. The org isn't in there anywhere. And we had this conversation about it, and I remember him saying, "What are you saying? Like, what are you saying?" And kind of like freaking out moment. And then, so that's how he left, in that frame of mind, leaving for that trip where he was gone for 3 months. But I think that was good because then we each did our own thinking. We talked on the phone about it, but we made journeys separately. And then when he came back together, we didn't even have to talk about it a whole lot. We both knew that we were leaving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is great. That is great. Now, let me ask you this: as a couple that has kind of successfully figured this out for yourselves, there's a lot of people that will message me and they'll say, you know, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my husband, my wife is starting to go back to the Kingdom Hall now, and they want me to come, and I don't know what to do. I don't know. I don't want to be involved in that. You know, there's a lot of these households where they're having this struggle. And I mean, what can a person do? Do you have any advice for somebody that's in that kind of a situation?
I think one of the biggest things that helped us out as not only as a married couple, but just an overall thing. Shortly after we had decided to leave the organization, we were an opportunity that we were able to move and just get away from, you know, where people knew us. And we were also able to move to a very rural place. And during that time, we were able to really find ourselves, each of us as individuals, but also as a family again. Our family, I have to say that something that I'm very proud about is that Sarah and I's marriage is stronger than it has ever been in our entire 15 years of marriage. It will be 16 years in November, because there's not the pressure that was upon us. Sarah, I guess I can let her just tell how she viewed me within the organization. I was in a ministerial servant, but I wasn't an elder yet, and there was a lot of stress there for us, and I'll let her explain some of that.
Well, I was just going to answer his question. It was for me, at the time that I decided I was done, but Trevor wasn't sure, and he wanted me to go to the meetings or whatever. I said to him, I will go. I will go if you want me to go because I love you, but I don't feel this anymore, and I'm not going to participate in this. But if you want the children to go to the Kingdom Hall, I will do that, and I will be kind about it. So I think that the big key is to show real love. Because when you're in the org, you're able to see that there is a lot of love it's not real love. But if you can just show the person that you're living with how much you love them and be supportive, even if it means you have to go to the Kingdom Hall or whatever, it doesn't mean that that's what's in your heart, and that's what counts is what's in your heart.
Right. Well, that is really great. It's awesome because you have mutual respect. It wasn't like you were giving an ultimatum saying, you know, I'm never going to support you or I'm not going to go to the hall. You were willing to do that. But I think one thing that we've touched on in the past when we were talking was just that when a person doesn't go to this 2 and 3 and 4 times a week indoctrination that the average witness is subjected to, all of a sudden, you know that force, that Watchtower enslavement that's in your head kind of starts to dissipate. And so just staying away for a time, you know, and when I interviewed Trevor, 6 months ago, Sarah, you were on that yoga retreat for all that time, and doing stuff like that, I can imagine was therapeutic for you as well.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was an amazing trip because I had started yoga when I was in, how old was I? 21. After we realized, we were having children and we had no money because we had spent all our youth pioneering, I went to college short term and I took a yoga class and fell in love with it in college. And then after that, an article came out, on the Watchtower that said because of its history and its roots that you're not allowed to do yoga. So because I was loyal I dutifully stopped doing yoga. So when we left, I got right back into it again, and I decided that was something that was on my bucket list. I wanted to teach yoga, and I went to this retreat in the Bahamas and stayed at a traditional ashram, which was more than I was expecting. You know, you open the yoga magazine, and it's just people doing yoga on the beach, and you're going to learn to be a teacher. Well, I was there for a whole month, and I had to get up at 5:30 in the morning, and I had to go to their morning worship, their satsang, and it was your day was full, and it included philosophy classes and chanting classes and all kinds of things that I resisted for 2 weeks, and felt really uncomfortable and had to talk to the counselors, like, I'm not here to learn a religion, I'm here to learn yoga, and I want to be immersed in the culture, but I don't get why I have to go to these, these satsangs and things, but I just kind of wrote it out and calmed down, and they were like, you don't have to participate in the religious aspects, but, just it's something to learn. And by the end of the trip, the last 2 weeks, I was a whole different person, and I didn't become a Hindu. I learned a lot about the world, and I met the best people from all over the world, and I came out a much calmer person, and I spent that month finding myself again, because that's something that you're really is taken away from you, especially when you're third-generation witness who's, started the auxiliary pioneering in my summers off since I was 11 years old and spent my whole life living for someone else, not knowing who I was. So it was very transformative. It was a good time.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that with us also because, when people get out of a controlling religious group or any kind of a cult-like organization, one of the things that they need to do is just sort of clear their heads and process it and find kind of their new path and be able to stand on their own without this structure that's constantly holding you up and telling you what to do and how to think and making your decisions for you. So in your case, the yoga was something that you really, it resonated with you and it helped you and it worked and it is working. For somebody else, it might be something different, but that's okay too.
Right. Yeah, totally. You find what works for you and what can help you. The meditation really helps me a lot too, as far as like clearing my head and things like that.
Yeah, that is. There's a lot of therapeutic and beneficial values to that. Now, one other thing that I wanted to bring up because I'm just thinking about this is that in witnesses will have a convention and they'll have some person come up and give their experience of how they came into the TWOOF, and then they'll talk about how their husband, their wife, their kids, their grandma, they all came in. And in this instance, it was kind of in the opposite, that once some of your family members started to get out and you started to share it with one another, then a whole bunch of you in the family got out, which is again, a great success story. Do you have some others in your family that you've tried to kind of talk to, but that you just have to have kind of a mutual understanding? You don't talk about the religion anymore?
Yeah, I have it was interesting here. When my parents, going back to the original conversation that I had before, I had literally about a 15-minute conversation with my dad. And after having that 15-minute conversation, my entire family had cut me off. And now I have a large family on my side. I have a brother and his wife and kids in Oregon. And then I have a brother or a sister and her husband with kids in Colorado. And then another sister and her husband with kids in Montana. None of them had actually called me up and said, hey, Trevor, what's going on with you and Sarah? Not one of them called up to see why we had left or what we were thinking. They all immediately just viewed us as apostates and cut all contact off with us. But one of Sarah and I's goal is just to really show people that we love, because we have nothing against the people that are still within the organization. We feel that the general person in the organization is somebody that's truly trying to serve God and what they think is right. And we love the people that are in there, but we just don't like the headship or the organization, the people that run it, basically. And make a long story short, we've been just trying to show love to my parents. I still allow my kids to try to call and contact my parents, even though my parents will do nothing to contact them. Once in a while, they'll drop I'll take that back. Once in a while, they'll drop them a note in the mail, but that's about it. I have my kids will call my mom and dad and just say, hey, how's it going? But other than that, there's really no contact. But here, coming about a week ago, we went through Colorado, and I decided to text my brother-in-law. And we texted him, and he actually texted me back and said, hey, this is just between us, but we haven't gone to a meeting in over a year. And it was just very interesting that he said that to me. So he ended up calling me about 20 minutes later after that text, and he says he doesn't really want to talk religion, but he allowed me to talk a little bit about why we left, and he told me, well, I get it, but I just can't talk religion. I'm just too confused. You know, we haven't been to a meeting in over a year. The family doesn't know, but I feel really guilty, and I feel like I need to go back, but I'm tired of it. I just don't feel like I could live up to their expectations. And so we've been trying to help them, but it's just one of those very thin lines of they just don't want to talk to us because we're the apostate. What was interesting is they wanted to talk to my sister, who was disfellowshipped for fornication. They felt more comfortable talking to her than to Sarah and myself. So we're kind of trying to help them, but it's just kind of a hit and miss at this point. Mm-hmm. And we hope that we can say something to help them in the future.
Right, and I think you're wise in trying to just respect what he said and tread lightly and not try to push anything. When I was getting out of the religion several years ago, I had somebody give me some really good advice, and he just basically said to me, if someone doesn't have an itch, why are you trying to scratch it? And initially I was like going around trying to wake up every JW I knew, and it just doesn't work. They don't want it. They're completely immersed in the Matrix, if you want to use that example from that movie. And until they're starting to question or inquire, sometimes the best thing you can do is just, try to be a normal, well-adjusted person. And like you said, not have anger, not have hate, and just show them that you're not what the Watchtower portrays as some bitter, angry, twisted person that leaves the movement.
Right, totally. That's what Trevor's sister, one of his sisters I was close with, we just got along really well. Our kids were the same age. And after we left, she obviously cut me off. But every once in a while, if I see something that reminds me of her, a card or something, I'll send it to her, send pictures of the kids, and just say, hey, I'm thinking about you. And there's been a couple times that she texted me after receiving something I sent and said, thanks, the kids look great. And then I just leave it at that, I hope things are great with you guys, and just try to keep the door open, because anybody can wake up at any time, and I just want them to know that I'm here and I love you, and I'm not going to push anything down your throat, but if you want to come talk to me, I still would love to talk to you.
Mm-hmm. Right, that's outstanding. And Trevor, you had mentioned to me that one of your sons had actually tried to kind of do some unwitnessing to his uncle, but didn't get any results back, and he's not baptized, right?
Yeah, my son is not baptized. We recently were out in Portland area, and like I said before, we have no hatred towards my family. I'm very proud of my family. I have a lot of good memories with my family, and my son enjoyed my brother, his uncle, and so he asked if he could get a hold of him and see if his uncle could take him fishing. And I absolutely had no problem with that. And so we texted my brother and said, hey, Noah would love to get together with you and would love to go fishing. Call us back if you would like to do that. Well, or text me back if that would be okay with you. We never received any text. We never received any phone call from him. We drove by the house to see if he would be around, and he wasn't there. It was their weekend of the district convention, but to this day he still hasn't responded back to Noah's request. In fact, Noah even gave him a phone call and just said, I'm really disappointed that you didn't even call me. And I'm not sure of exactly everything that Noah relayed to him, but he did a little bit of witnessing work himself, just saying, how is this love, and so I know he did a little bit of work with leaving a message with him, but there was never any response on my brother's part.
Right, and how old is Noah?
Noah is 11 years old.
Oh, bless his heart. Isn't that sweet? So, but what the pity is that here you have a man that is not a bad person, but yet he's not even going to respond to his nephew because his nephew is, related to this evil apostate. It's just crazy the way that people's cult mentality will override their true self.
Right. Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, and that's a pity. So you have plans for the future. You guys are on track with your own lives and getting out. And I mean, where do you see things going from here?
Well, I think, as I was kind of relating before, we were able to move out to a small area and kind of get to know ourselves as well. But now that we've kind of been to in a small area, we're really wanting to be around other people, because I think that's one of the biggest things that Sarah and I have come to appreciate is how many good people there are out there. That it's not just Jehovah's Witnesses that can raise a family and be a respectful family. It's not just Jehovah's Witnesses that can have children that make good moral decisions or good choices. That there's actually many, many families out there of all types of faith that are out there that can have done the exact same thing as the Jehovah's Witness has. And we want that for our kids, and we're looking at moving to the Oregon area so that we can really be where there are more opportunity for the kids in schooling, even in sports, in arts. My daughter loves arts. So we're looking to move to an area that they can have whatever they want out of life and the opportunity to do those things. So that's what we're really looking forward to. And just being part of a community, helping people where we can help people, and enjoying some of the things that we were taught were so bad for all these years. But in essence, brings great joy to the kids. And it's all, still serving God and Christ as a family.
Yeah, and that's really a healthy direction to go, because the witnesses talk about how that they don't isolate themselves, or they're supposed to to mix with other people, but really they don't. They do exclude themselves from society, from community, from taking community responsibility, charitable works. The list goes on and on of all the things that witnesses don't do. From not associating with coworkers or supporting any extracurricular activities, just on and on and on. And these are things that normal people, that society in general, it's what helps strengthen a society and bring more people together and get to know one another.
Right, and it's what gives your life real satisfaction. Meaning is to work for each other, not to work for an organization that you really don't know what stands for. Well, I guess it's true, but yeah, whenever people ask me, I don't have a lot to say about my journey of leaving. Every day I say that I'm grateful to be free, to experience, whether or not you believe in Christ, to experience what Christ said about the truth setting you free, and just excited to go forth from here and have, whatever we want to do is before us. The universe will respond to whatever we want to do, and whatever our children want to do. I'm just glad to be free.
And the other thing is one of the biggest things is that we're not judging people like we did before. And I think that's the biggest thing.
Oh, man, that was a weight, wasn't it?
Yeah. Just not judging people for the decisions that they make, whether it's with their children, whether it's whatever it's with. We don't have that burden of judging people. And, the witnesses want to say, oh, we don't judge people, but that's all we do. I mean, you're judged by what you are in the congregation. If you're just a publisher, well, why are you just a publisher? Or, if you're not a regular pioneer, well, why aren't you a regular pioneer? If you're not a ministerial servant, you're judging people all the time. And I think that's one of the biggest ways.
Yeah, because you can't really love that way. That stops you from loving because you're always judging people. So now we're free to experience and to give out real love.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of those instances where when you're in the middle of the religion, you can't see it, because if we had active witnesses, in the room with us right now, they might disagree. They might say, well, oh no, only God's the judge, only Jehovah's the judge, and they might disagree, and they could say that in sincerity, but it's because it's very difficult to see yourself when you're in it, because we all know the unwritten rules and the unwritten things that we say when we go door knocking, and when you see people in, at the restaurant or wherever, and if they have, if their hair's a funny color, or if they have earrings in their ears and they're a man, or they've got a beard or whatever, you're automatically going to be like, oh, well, they're not a witness. Oh, well, they're not going to make it, because they're different. So, yes, these judgments are constantly being made by people that are in fundamentalist groups like the witnesses, and now that you step out of it, it's nice to not have to do that, and to really be able to say, hey, I'm not the judge, it's not my job, and I don't have to worry about it anymore.
Right. And that's what helps out in a relationship too, between, your partner, your family, to stop doing that to each other and holding each other to the standards of men. And just, it really opens up your relationship and allows it to grow that much more.
Mm-hmm. It's true. It's true. Well, Trevor, is there anything else you wanted to mention? Because I know this has been a great update to be able to kind of bring us forward 6 months from where you were 6 months ago.
Right. No, I can't think of anything right now. I mean, it's just a joy to be able to know what is out there as a family, that there are people that are making it out as families out of here and finding a better way of life, a happier way of life. And that, a lot of times people have, according to the witnesses, that they're going to leave and they're going to lose all faith in God. But, that's not the case here. Our family still believe in God and Christ Jesus, and our relationship is, like I said, the strongest it's ever been in our entire marriage. And we're truly happy.
And that's a really notable thing to say right there, because I've interviewed a couple other folks in the past that have said that their marriage actually got better, their mental health got better, a lot of these things, because they don't have all this pressure, all this constant treadmill of busy work for the organization. And the witnesses want to talk about how wonderful their marriages are. Well, they've done, Pew Research Forum did a study, and they found their divorce rate is just about the same as all the other, religious groups. It's really not that much better or worse than the others. So you're seeing it in your own life, and again, that's strong testimony right there, just on its own.
Right.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Well, Trevor and Sarah, thank you so much for sharing this update with us. I really appreciate it, and I think there's going to be a lot of other folks out there that are going to enjoy that. When I looked at your previous interview from January, there had been over 7,000 views just of the interview we had 6 months ago. So it's lovely to see that people are watching these and listening to these. And the feedback is 99% of the time is very positive. So I think, once again, this is going to help people to see normalcy can be reacquired. Normalcy can be gained when we just, get out of this control group and stop judging people and all those things. Just like Jesus did say in the Sermon on the Mount, to just stop judging. So thanks again for sharing, where you guys are at. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yay, thanks for giving us a voice. We appreciate that.
All right. Well, take care.
All right, you too.
All right. Great talking to you.
The order is rapidly fading, for the times they are a-changing.